Welcome to Frankie's Garage. We're going to do a quick and dirty one here. Let's say you've got a brand new EGR that you're going to install in your truck because it's open and it works, but you've got your old one and you want to test to make sure that it was sealed. What we're going to do today is build a pressure vessel out of this old EGR. What we have is a Dorman 55093. We're going to weld that in there. And we've got a Dorman 555021. These should be able to be purchased at your local auto parts store. They're just standard freeze plugs. And I don't know the size off the top of my head, but I think this one is 35 millimeters. And I don't remember what size this one is. Actually, this might be the 35 mil. That one over there is larger. So these will go inside the holes like that and like that to build your pressure vessel so that you can pressure test the internals of this old EGR. Next step, I can't find my wire wheel, but I've got this tore up stone wheel. So I'm going to clean up the insides and get them ready for welding. Alright, first things first, you can see it's pretty freaking dirty in there. It needs to be a clean surface, so we're going to take this stone wheel, throw it in there, give it a good grind. Alright, now after hitting that with the grinding stone, we've got it cleaned up pretty well. Don't know if you can see that. Let's see if we can put a flash on it. Much better. Got most of the stuff off. I think I'll go back in with a piece of sandpaper and just clean it up a little bit more. There are probably better ways to do this, like a wire wheel or a cylindrical flap sander. I don't have those or can't find them. Next thing is this is a sealing surface here, so you don't want to damage this at all. I am going to take an emery pad to it, just real quick. It's really not going to make that much of a difference, but it'll clean it up a little bit. And then we'll start pounding in the freeze plug to seal this hole off. Alright, I've hit it with the emery cloth disc and a little sandpaper. We are looking pretty cleaned up in there. I think we'll burn through most of that carbon anyway with the welder. So next step, we're going to move on to this side. We're going to do the same thing with the stone grinder, stone wheel. We don't really need to do the emery cloth on this side, but we'll get it ready to accept this plug as well in there. Alright, we've got that ground down. We're looking pretty clean in there. Now, next thing, we're going to hit it with some brake parts cleaner, both sides, to make sure they're prepared. And then we're going to move on to pounding in these freeze plugs to seal this off into a pressure vessel so that we can pressure test it. Alright, now that there's brake parts cleaner all over everything, let's hope I don't catch on fire later. We've got both sides fairly well cleaned out. And now we're going to move on to pounding in those freeze plugs. Alright, I'm going to line up that freeze plug just like that. I've got a, what is this, 3/4 inch socket, just a garbage socket. We'll put it right there, just like that as a driver. And then we're gonna beat this freeze plug into that hole. Alright, we've sufficiently pounded the freeze plug into the hole. We left about a 1/4 inch of weldable space. Use that, pound it into the hole. So we've got a lot of space to weld on it. And I'll get to this later, but the freeze plug is extremely thin while the EGR is incredibly thick. So we're going to want to burn into the EGR with the welder and draw it onto the freeze plug to make sure we don't burn through the actual plug itself and we get good penetration into the EGR. Now we're going to move on to this side. Gonna find a socket to pound this into the hole, and then we'll get ready for welding. This time I'm gonna use a 21 millimeter. That's an impact socket. Fits pretty well down in there, it won't get stuck. So we're gonna pound that into this side. Now here you'll notice I've already gotten it started. We've got just barely a little bit showing. There's not much material on the inside to actually keep this held in, so we're not gonna drive it much further than this. That should be fine considering how it mates up to the up pipe afterwards, you know, for pressure testing purposes, but we should get a good seal on it. Okay, we've got it sunk in about an eighth, focus, eighth of an inch there. Should be enough to get a decent weld on it, and we'll move on to welding. All right, we've got the old Hobart, got it set to level 3. We're gonna do 5. Might turn that down actually. Let's go to 4.5. All right, so got our lead, and I've got this set up reverse voltage, so I believe this is positive. The gun will be negative. With an argon shielding, we'll get a good weld out of that. So we're gonna weld there. Let's move our brake parts cleaner and rag so that they don't catch fire. That's probably smart. I have a fire extinguisher on the side, but let's get this welded up and make a pressure testing vessel, because that's what we're doing here. And just a side note, I've got the garage door cracked a little bit. It's really hot outside. I'd normally do this outside, but in abundance of caution, to try to keep some flow, I've got the garage door cracked. I've also got the door behind me open so that we're getting some cross flow. I've got the fan running over there. I've got a mini bike, I don't know why. So we're gonna weld on this and try to be safe. I've also got welding mask and gloves, or a welding hood rather. So yeah, don't kill yourself. All right, so we started to run a bead, and obviously we're not putting enough heat into it. That is a very superficial weld. So what we're gonna do is turn this up to level 4. That's the max that this machine will go. I think it's a 120 amp machine. Also, I completely missed on that side, so that's great. But we'll crank it up to number 4, see if we can run back over that weld and get it more penetrated into the EGR. Well, it looks like absolute garbage, but you know, I think it's gonna work out for us. I'm fairly certain that I got it sealed up to the freeze plug. Now we're gonna move on to this side, which may be a little bit more difficult, but let's give it a shot. All right, we've got both sides welded up. I'm a hobbyist welder, so probably looks like, but I think it's penetrated. The other side, pretty deep. We might have to take some off. Looks like we've got a little bit of protrusion there, but that's fine. This side as well, just a little bit, but it mostly seals on this outer flange here. So now, we're pretty much done. We're just gonna check it with some air pressure to see if this side is sealed and that side is sealed. And then, in the interest of a part 2, we're gonna drill a hole in that and put a Schrader valve in it so that we can pressure test it, because that's what we're doing with this. No other reason. We're gonna pressure test it. That'll be in part 2 that I'll never make.